For those of you expecting tie-dye, sandals, and a man bun, I'm sorry to disappoint. There's a town in the Sacred Valley in Peru called Ollantaytambo. And the Sacred Valley in Peru is an area close to Cusco that contains a number of different Inca ruins. And Ollantaytambo is the only town in that area where the Inca ruin is literally in the town itself. When I first arrived in Ollantaytambo, I got a strong sense that this was a spiritual place. I'm not a religious person, wasn't particularly spiritual back then, but I felt this for the first time. One of my first thoughts was, I should try and find ayahuasca here. I'd heard about this natural psychedelic from a friend of mine, and I knew that I was in the right part of the world to be able to find it. So I spoke to several people in the town without success, and I got chatting to an Italian guy who was working in this kind of gift shop / antique shop in the center of Ollantaytambo. He said to me, I know a shaman. His name is Percy. Me and my wife have done 10+ ceremonies with him. He's like part of the family. But he's not a shaman for ayahuasca. He is a shaman for San Pedro cactus. I'd never heard of San Pedro cactus, but he explained to me, it's much softer, much smoother than ayahuasca. So I took this glowing endorsement and I contacted Percy the shaman. He said to me, 2 days later, we're going to be holding a San Pedro cactus ceremony up in the hillside near to Ollantaytambo. So I signed up to join the group. That night, I went to bed. I woke up 2 o'clock in the morning, really sick, like really upset stomach. Next day, didn't feel great. That night, went to bed, same thing. 2 o'clock in the morning, wake up, upset stomach, to the point where I'm thinking, I don't think I can do this. Fast forward to 9 a.m., I've resolved myself. I'm going to do this, whatever. A van comes to pick me up. In the front of the van, in the passenger seat, is Percy the shaman. In the back of the van are other participants from the group. I get in, I introduce myself, I explain the fact that the last couple of days I haven't been really feeling so great. And Percy the shaman turns around to me and he says, Stuart, the medicine is already working. Today I'm going to speak to you about my experiences with San Pedro cactus, with ayahuasca, and how I believe that the psychedelic experience overlaps with the nomad experience. Before I do, I've been told I need to have a disclaimer. That disclaimer is that I'm not a medical professional. I'm not giving any recommendations. I'm just sharing my first-hand experiences. These natural psychedelics are often referred to as plant medicines, and the indigenous communities that use them just refer to them as medicine. Stuart, the medicine is already working. In my mind, I'm thinking, yeah, whatever, dude. So we carry on in the van up into the hillside of Ollantaytambo, where we begin the San Pedro cactus ceremony. Percy the shaman is in white with a hat on. He starts the ceremony by blowing tobacco smoke over each participant to cleanse you, to ward away negative energies. Then each person drinks the San Pedro cactus tea out of a silver goblet. San Pedro contains mescaline as its active component. And mescaline is also shared by peyote, a plant in Mexico. So we have the tobacco cleanse, We drink the San Pedro cactus tea. It's not pleasant, but it's not unpleasant either. And then we follow Percy hiking up to find where we will spend the day. San Pedro is not a group activity in the sense that each person goes and finds a spot where they're comfortable to spend the time. And you can come back and you can speak to Percy if you wish to. You can drink more San Pedro cactus tea if you wish to. San Pedro is a long experience. We started this at 10 o'clock in the morning, and I was still feeling this at 11 o'clock that night. So 13 hours from start to finish. And I remember just before going to bed trying to send a message on my phone, and the buttons were really big, and I don't remember if I sent that message, but I probably shouldn't have done. So San Pedro, long experience. It's also not particularly visual. Maybe you'll see like the outline of a face in the mountainside, but nothing crazy. However, it's a very emotional experience, and it's often referred to as a heart-opening medicine, which I think is accurate. For me, it was manageable. There were a few difficult moments, but generally speaking, it was good. I felt pretty sick throughout, but I started feeling sick going into it, so that's to be expected. The experience itself, I don't know, it wasn't anything particularly special. I didn't come away with any amazing insights or amazing revelations. I wasn't disappointed. I didn't really have an idea of what to expect. But the next day, and for 2 to 3 months after this experience, my inner dialogue was completely shut off. Nothing. I was totally present in everything that I was doing. And I can tell you that this was the best thing that had ever happened to me. The sense of relief from this relentless, constant chatter in my mind was just wonderful. And when you take something away, you're able to assess it. And what I learned from that was, number one, that I had an inner dialogue. I just thought it was me. I didn't know that there was this separate thing. Number two, I realized how relentless it was and how strong it was. And number three, I realized how negative it was. I'd like to get a quick show of hands. Could those people who are aware of the fact that they have an inner dialogue, please raise your hand? That looks like about 50, maybe a bit more than 50%, if I can see accurately. I'd read somewhere online that 40% of the people have the inner dialogue and 60% don't, or maybe it's the other way around. So we're kind of on track with that. Firstly, congratulations, because you're doing way better than I was, because I didn't even know that this was a thing. So San Pedro, pros and cons of this experience. Pros, this inner dialogue thing was just a revelation to me in terms of understanding my own psychology. It was incredible. Not the experience itself, the afterwards. In terms of cons, it's a long experience, I guess, but it's pretty manageable. And I would say that in that 2 to 3 month period after this event, I lacked motivation. I wasn't walking around like a zombie. I could do everything that I needed to do, but I didn't feel the need to do anything more because I was in this Zen-like state. And you can look at that as a con or a pro, depending on your attitude to attainment, achievement, success, etc. An interesting thing happened 2 to 3 months after this experience. Emboldened by having had such a good experience, I signed up to do ayahuasca in the jungle in Ecuador. And as soon as I committed to doing that, the inner dialogue started to come back. What's going to come up in this one? They say this one's really strong. Are you going to be able to handle it? And I think that Percy was right. That the experience doesn't begin at the point at which the experience begins. It begins at the point at which you commit to doing it. And maybe, just maybe, the medicine was already working. So I make my way down to Ecuador for ayahuasca. Firstly, it takes place at night rather than in the day. And the ceremonies take place in that hut on the left-hand side, which is called a maloca. And the picture on the right-hand side is the inside of the maloca, I think after a ceremony it looks like. Each person is given a mattress and a sick bucket. So you kind of got a sense of where this thing is going. Picture in the middle is me with the shaman Don Carlos. The hair is getting dangerously close to man bun territory back then. Don Carlos is the best part of 80 years old. He's been a practicing shaman for more than 40 years. If this was something that could be interesting to you, I would suggest to find an experienced indigenous shaman and an experienced retreat center to do this. A good retreat center should be sending you a very extensive questionnaire about your physical health, your mental health, any pharmaceuticals that you're taking that could interfere with the interactions of this particular substance, and they shouldn't be taking your money until you've sent that in, it's been approved and everything is okay. Ayahuasca takes place at night, very different to San Pedro. I can tell you that my inner dialogue, my inner worry, was absolutely on point. The first ayahuasca ceremony was the most brutal experience of my life. It ripped me to pieces. And I can say to you that ayahuasca is definitely a process. It's not a one and done. So I've done ayahuasca 7 times in total across different retreat centers. And if I look at those 7, 1 of them was positive and pleasant. 2 of them were the most brutal experiences of my life. And 4 of them were kind of middling in their different ways. The positive and pleasant experience dialed back into the inner dialogue for me. And I spent 4 to 5 hours listening to the most positive self-talk. And I'd never heard that voice be positive before. I only ever knew negative. And this was incredible for me. If I take the San Pedro experience and the ayahuasca experiences in aggregate, they have taken my inner dialogue from level 100 down to maybe level 15 to 20% of what it used to be. And also, the dialogue that remains is significantly more compassionate. And that has absolutely transformed my life. Every single day of my life is better because of this. And we are now years later. What I will also say is that I don't think that I could have unlocked that positive dialogue ceremony without the 2 brutal experiences that preceded it. So what does a brutal ayahuasca ceremony consist of? I'm not going to try and explain it or describe it. It's a little bit like someone trying to describe their dreams to you. You switch off after 10 seconds. What I will try to do is surmise what I think ayahuasca is very good at doing. Ayahuasca is very good at stripping away the layers of conditioning that have developed over time and allowing you to reconnect with your authentic self. And everyone subconsciously creates this identity. And you cling on to this identity very, very strongly because it's safe. And you've been clinging on to that identity for years, if not decades. And when something comes along and it tries to take that away, it is psychologically excruciating. It's so, so difficult. The other thing that ayahuasca is very good at doing is opening a door to your subconscious mind and letting things filter up to the surface to be processed, relived, whatever it may be. And before these ceremonies, you're advised to have an intention for the ceremony. And I believe that the reason that you're advised to have this intention is that it kind of guides what bubbles up to the surface. There's no guarantees of what you'll get, but it can help to guide you in that direction. And what can happen is you have these things bubble up, and the ceremonies give you an opportunity to revisit difficult past events. And ayahuasca is very, very visual. I mean, you will literally see this in technicolor, either first person in your childhood self with your adult mind, or watching the scene play out, generally emotionless, in the sense that you can see what that trigger was and the emotional reaction that perhaps you've been repeating again and again and again through your life. But again, that is not an easy thing to do. So if I look at ayahuasca and I say, you know, what are the pros and the cons of this experience? In terms of pros, very, very good at reconnecting with your authentic self. Very, very good at processing difficult past events. Ayahuasca is often referred to as a decade of therapy in one night. And I think that expression is a little bit trite, but there's definitely a truism to it, in the sense that that unlocking of that particular event and its reaction could take weeks, months, or years to find and process with traditional talk therapy. It sounds very good to strip away these layers of conditioning, to rip apart this constructed identity. But in reality, that is incredibly difficult. And it can often leave you feeling very raw and very vulnerable. And it's one of the reasons why the integration process after these experiences is incredibly important. And it's also one of the reasons why these retreat centers have multiple ceremonies across your time there. And oftentimes it's the first one that's the most difficult. And they say that there's the most negative energy to remove from your system. So ayahuasca is very, very difficult mentally. It can leave you feeling very raw, and it's physically challenging. Vomiting is a component part of it. It's not always guaranteed, but in the majority of instances it happens. And a lot of people are put off by that, and I totally understand it. Nobody likes vomiting. The only mitigating thing that I will say is often that physical release is intertwined with an emotional release in the experience itself. So how does the psychedelic experience and the nomad experience overlap? Being a nomad is great. You get to meet lots of new people, explore new places, have amazing experiences. But the flip side of that coin is that you are a very long way away from your home environment for extended periods of time. And with that time and with that distance, you get perspective. And that perspective is how that home environment molded you, shaped you, conditioned you. And you can only really see that with the time and with the distance. The other thing about being a nomad is that you're spending the majority of your time with new people. And those new people have no preconceived expectations of how you should be. And again, over time, you're not going to transform as a person overnight, but with time, you start to tap into a more authentic self. And for me, really, the psychedelics are like a short, sharp shock of the same thing. I would like to leave you with a story about an Australian lady called Bronnie Ware. Bronnie Ware was a palliative care nurse, and she spent many years working with people at the end of their lives. And at the end of her career, she wrote a very popular blog post called Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. And I don't want to get too morbid here, but I think that this is important. The number 1 regret of the dying was, I wish I'd had the courage to live a life authentic to me and not what others expected of me. I would like to congratulate each and every one of you for having the courage to live your own story and not what others expect of you.